Tonight, innocent drivers forced to dodge a stolen car in a high-speed chase across Melbourne's southeast. A worrying admission as the Reserve Bank boss defends rising interest rates. Homes threatened in a fire scare as Melbourne faces a hot night. Exclusive and injured tradies hit-run ordeal in the western suburbs. Wayne Carey backs down over his white powder scandal. And later, the new mortgage option promising to cut repayments as rates rise. But there is a cost.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. Innocent drivers have been caught up in a dangerous car chase across Melbourne's southeast. Police claim a stolen car reached speeds of 180 kilometres per hour with a 16-year-old behind the wheel.
Behind the wheel, a 16-year-old teenager and his female passenger. With police in convoy, the pair both wearing balaclavas.
It was just like something out of a movie scene.
They lead officers on a high-speed chase across Melbourne's southeast. As motorists swerve out of the way to avoid being cleaned up.
He didn't want to stop. Didn't give a damn. The guy's only on 3 wheels pretty much, and all of a sudden we saw these cop cars following them.
The stolen car was first spotted driving erratically and running a red light on the Princess Highway in Springvale just after 7:30 last night. Then it ran another red light on Heatherton Road in Dandenong. Police Air Wing capturing speeds of up to 180 kilometres an hour. Police laid stop sticks on Chandler Road in Keysborough, puncturing the tyres. But the vehicle kept on driving on the rims before it was forced to stop.
It was pretty scary. Oh, they could definitely hurt somebody. That was for sure.
When the driver came out from Narry Warren Felton Gate area, you could see he had a balaclava on and his eyes were just like wide open.
The car was stolen from a home in Eltham 5 days ago during an aggravated burglary, and it was allegedly used to commit other crimes across Melbourne. The teenage driver is being kept behind bars, but his female passenger was released on bail.
Things are just getting out of control, I reckon.
Cassie Zervos, 7 News.
The Governor of the Reserve Bank has warned more interest rate rises are coming and has admitted he doesn't know when they will stop. Philip Lowe tried to defend the mortgage misery as he faced a grilling in Canberra, saying it was unfair for him to cop all the criticism.
The centre of attention, his job under threat, but Philip Lowe insists it's not all about him.
The fact that it's all sheeted down to me is a bit unfair, but...
He says all 9 RBA members share responsibility for rates decisions and their consequences.
It would be a very bad outcome for the board to have to resign.
He doesn't have a mortgage but says he knows many who do are hurting. He's reading their letters.
With a very heavy heart. I find it, personally kind of disturbing. People are really, really hurting. I understand that.
Personally moved but not budging on the RBA's mission to force inflation back below 3%. Confirmation that more rate rises are coming.
How far we have to go up, I don't know.
He warns not lifting rates high enough would be even worse, sending inflation, unemployment and rates much higher.
And it's the job of the central bank to do sometimes what's unpopular in the national interest.
His now infamous prediction that rates wouldn't rise at all until next year, very unpopular.
He was derelict in his duty.
The Sunrise host and finance expert says the government should now guarantee the loans of those who took Dr. Lowe's advice and dived into big mortgages.
So that the bank doesn't sell them up, so they don't lose their house.
That as the ACCC consumer watchdog begins investigating why the banks are so quick to jack up mortgage interest rates but not interest on savings, all while recording record profits. CommBank announcing a $5.15 billion profit, though its CEO's warning of a darker outlook.
When you look ahead, just like our customers are going to have to navigate through a more challenging period. So is the Commonwealth Bank.
CommBank shares falling almost 6% on that. Dr Lowe defending the banks.
It's a positive for the country. We want strong, resilient banks.
Adding with a chuckle,
I know it's hard for people to accept when they're suffering problems with their personal finances.
this time definitely on his own. Most Australians seeing no reason to smile. Mark Riley, 7 News.
There's tragic news from East Gippsland tonight. 2 people have drowned at Malakuta. The body of the man and the woman were pulled from the water at Bastion Point just before 3:30 this afternoon. Paramedics were unable to revive the pair. A fire emergency north of Melbourne has forced residents to leave their homes on day 1 of a 3-day heat wave. Emma O'Sullivan joins us now. And Emma, the hot weather has authorities on alert.
Mitch, the fire danger rating will be high over southern parts of the state over the next 2 days. An emergency warning had to be issued this afternoon, urging some residents in Beveridge to leave their homes immediately as fire crews and water bombers battled a grass fire that was moving towards property. Flames did get close to sheds, thankfully. After a couple of hours, that one was brought under control without any damage. 6 hectares were burnt out. Tomorrow and Friday will be even hotter than today. No doubt many will head to beaches to cool off, but authorities are also urging people to check in on neighbours or family who might be vulnerable to heat stress. And of course, Jane Bunn will have further details on this heatwave later in the bulletin, Mitch.
Emma O'Sullivan at Port Melbourne, thank you. An injured tradie is asking for the public's help to find the scooter riders who ran him down in Melbourne's west. The impact put the 51-year-old in hospital. He says the hit-run pair are shameful for leaving him lying on the ground.
Nursing a broken leg from his hospital bed, Paul Smith is still shaken by the events of Sunday night.
I was pretty much left for dead. I feel like bawling my eyes out, but it's not going to get me anywhere either.
The 51-year-old cyclist was riding along the Laverton Creek Trail in Altona Meadows when 2 men riding an unregistered scooter came out of nowhere.
They've hit me and I've gone flying into the reeds. I've dragged myself out and they were gone.
The carpet layer from Laverton was forced to lie on the footpath and wait for help. He wants to thank those who called 000.
God bless them. You know, that's very heartwarming.
All that was left at the scene was the scooter, this helmet and a silver chain necklace. Police want to hear from anyone who can identify the men.
It's a bit of a heartbreaker for me because I try and do the right thing in life and unfortunately they didn't. But I'm just grateful to be alive.
Estelle Greeping, 7 News.
A secret video has put the Andrews government under scrutiny with accusations that small business owners were harassed over a controversial level crossing. The confrontation with a level crossing executive is now under investigation.
Unannounced and unwavering. That sign opposed the level crossing removals at Mont Albert and Surrey Hills. The man is a senior manager who works for the project. For more than 4 minutes, the communications manager confronts staff.
The state government never paid compensation. So they won't get any compensation. Putting the fine up won't get you compensation, won't get you anything.
Residents and traders have long opposed the project, which promised 2 new stations but will only deliver 1 superstation.
This is absolutely appalling. This individual needs to stand down now.
This matter will be investigated and we expect and demand the highest possible standards from all of our staff.
Construction noise, road closures and dust have shut down some businesses already. Others are considering closing their doors.
We'd probably have 20 customers a day before. Now we're at kind of 2 to 5 at the max.
Residents here in Abbotsford are also fuming at the state government after emergency track works here on Monday night kept them awake until 2 a.m. And they say plans for the area are driving residents out.
The idea that this is going to be turned into a 24/7 permanent maintenance yard is extremely traumatic to my neighbours.
Neighbours already dealing with this.
It's been a complete nightmare for residents, and they can't sleep at night when the works are going on.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
Wayne Carey has backed down in a bitter dispute with Crown Casino. Blake Johnson has the details, and Blake, the AFL champion, has dropped legal action.
He has, Peter, through his lawyers. Wayne Carey says he's had enough of the media spotlight and will not pursue the case any further. The two-time premiership captain was evicted from Perth's Crown Casino in September when a bag of white powder fell from his pocket at the gaming venue. He claims it was crushed up over-the-counter painkillers that he uses to manage injuries from his playing days. Wayne Carey is holidaying overseas tonight. His lawyers say from now he wants to look forwards and not back. Peter?
Blake Johnson at Southbank, thank you. To breaking news now, and New Zealand's capital Wellington has just been hit by a 6.1 magnitude earthquake. It comes as the North Island reels from the devastation left by Cyclone Gabrielle, with 4 people now confirmed dead, including a child.
300 rescues in the space of a day, 60 from a single roof. But still, so many more to find, with 1,400 New Zealanders officially listed as uncontactable. Then, at least 4 killed, including a volunteer firefighter here, checking a flooded home when a landslide suddenly hit.
That's just an absolute tragedy that's going to hurt a lot of people.
Dave Van Schwanenberg, a father of 2, pilot and vet. Another of those killed, a child caught in rising waters.
Yeah, it's horrendous. And we've got some good friends that are, not doing well at all.
Another woman died in a Hawke's Bay landslide, another body found washed up north of Napier.
The grief of their families and loved ones will be unimaginable.
10,000 people displaced, 3,000 in shelters. Water supplies contaminated, food being flown in, an emergency barbecue is being set up for thousands.
They will keep cooking into the night until either they run out of people to feed or they run out of food.
Heartbreak for travellers too, turned back from Australia.
We were 40 minutes away from Auckland and they turned us around.
As Cyclone Gabrielle now moves east of New Zealand, it leaves billions of dollars in damages. This is just one state highway in the Coromandel.
But are we stretched? Yes, for sure. It's a big event for New Zealand.
One rescue offshore, a catamaran breaking anchor, the skipper needing a high seas evacuation. Then there were the animals, everywhere stranded. This horse, capturing national attention when it was trapped on a roof, died when the structure collapsed. But here, a lucky reunion. New Zealand left now to clean up its biggest disaster in decades. Chris Reason, 7 News.
Back home now, heavily armed police have swooped on 3 teenagers, pinning them to the ground in front of startled pedestrians in the city. The critical incident response team was called in after reports of an assault in Swanston Street around 7:30 last night. A 16-year-old Preston girl faces weapons and drugs charges. 2 other teenagers were released without charge. Olympic hero Peter Bol is hitting back in the growing fallout over a drug testing scandal. The Melbourne runner's coach is demanding an investigation into the leaking of his positive result as new revelations emerged on his drug testing history.
Donning the green and gold will never be the same for Peter Bol. His coach says Bol's national pride is now mixed with anger for Athletics Australia.
I still feel that we've been hardly done by, and I need questions answered. And I think the board should do that.
Bol's team has hit out at a lack of support during his provisional suspension. They also want answers over the leaking of the positive A sample test to synthetic EPO.
The support from the CEO and other people in the office hasn't been there, to be honest.
Remarkably, this is the second time Peter Bowles had a mixed test for synthetic EPO. A sample taken in November 2021 tested positive in a lab in Australia before a sample tested in Germany was negative. Bowles only became aware of the first test while he was suspended for the second. Sport Integrity Australia is continuing to investigate the atypical B sample from his second test.
They can continue an investigation all they want, interview him, do whatever. There's no evidence. We're in an evidence-based world. They have the burden to prove he did something wrong.
Defending his reputation has put Peter Bowles under severe financial stress. It's believed the ordeal has already cost him $70,000, close to what he would earn in a year from running.
We haven't made a decision that he's going to do anything or take any action against anyone. I really want Pete to focus on his life and his career now that he has it back.
The 800 metres champion has 6 weeks to prepare for the national championships.
I think there will always be a shadow or a level of doubt against Pete, which is natural, but I think he's capable to push that behind and just focus on what he needs to do.
Cameron Bowe, 7 News.
Tim Watson joins us now with a look ahead to sport, and Tim, cash is king at the AFL.
Mitch, it pays to be a league executive. Chief football reporter Tom Brown can explain why. Tom, Gillon McLachlan's team is well paid.
Tim, if you try to break it down, McLachlan may have taken home between $3.5 and $5 million last year. What the AFL do disclose is the 9 executives shared $11.8 million. That's an average of $1.33 million each, but it's clearly skewed based on McLachlan's wage. Now, under Andrew Demetriou, the AFL used to disclose that. They don't anymore. I spoke to Jeff Kennett today, who thinks in line with public company disclosure, the AFL should disclose the individual executive salaries, or at the very least, the bands. McLachlan's team did deliver a record TV deal and a profit of over $20 million. They've also substantially frozen the ticket prices for this upcoming season. Tim, the players, 12 earned over $1 million last year, 51 over $800,000. We'll break down those numbers and players shortly in sport.
Thanks, Tom. Also ahead in sport, we're live to the Hawks intra-club hit-out where it got heated amongst the players. And from an armed escort to a pitch inspection in Delhi, the latest from the Aussies in India, and Mitch Tiger Woods reveals all ahead of an awkward dinner date.
Oh dear, OK. Thank you, Tim. We'll see you a bit later. Driving on our roads is about to get more complicated. Next, a crackdown on distractions in the car a few weeks away, but there's confusion and concern. Also coming up, new tactics to take on scammers. The showbiz duo named King and Queen of Moomba. Later, the surprise investment that's making more money than gold, and you might own one.
And the heat increases over the next 2 days. I'll have the latest on the cool change later in 7 News.
The author of Hawthorne's Racism Review has been arrested over claims he defrauded an Aboriginal organisation. Phil Egan is accused of mishandling funds at the Murray Valley Aboriginal Cooperative during his time in charge between 2010 and 2012. Mr Egan's report into Hawthorne's handling of Indigenous players accused Alistair Clarkson and Chris Fagan of serious wrongdoing. An independent investigation into the claims is yet to be completed. New road rules are about to hit Victorian drivers with hefty fines. They'll come into effect at the end of March, but are already sparking some confusion.
It's worth brushing up on Victoria's new road rules. Just don't do it on your device.
We're expanding these rules to actually cover the new technology that is available across all vehicles.
Instead of just your mobile phone, new Victorian regulations now cover wearable devices, such as smartwatches, smart glasses and wearable heads-up displays, as well as tablets, laptops and game consoles.
Our strong advice is when it comes to mobile phones to put them in your glove box or in the back seat.
For L and P platers, the rules are more strict. You can't hold a device, take calls or use voice controls, but you can use a mounted phone or inbuilt screen to navigate, but you can't touch either while driving. If you're on a full licence, there is a little more freedom. You can't hold a device either, but you can tap it to take or reject a call, skip a song and use voice control. Drivers who break the rules face fines of $500 and 4 demerit points.
We have serious concerns with how the road toll is going.
In addition to new road rules, new road safety cameras will also be rolled out across Victoria. We don't yet know when they'll be installed, but there will be a 3-month grace period for drivers to acclimatise. The 200 cameras will snap high-quality pictures of you inside your car, but the government acknowledges it won't be able to tell whether you've tapped the device or scrolled.
There's always a right to challenge.
Jodie Lee, 7 News.
There's a blame game underway over the closure of Australia's last white paper mill. At its peak, the Opal mill in Gippsland produced up to 300 reams of paper a minute. It's ending operations because of a lack of timber supply, which the Nationals say is the fault of the Andrews government's environmental policy. Around 200 workers will lose their jobs and the cost of paper is expected to rise by 50%. One of the big 4 banks has moved to stop scammers conning consumers out of billions of dollars. NAB has brought in new technology to fight spoofing, where criminals send messages that appear to be from the bank.
Partnered with the telecommunications carriers to put additional protections around the phone numbers that NAB uses to make it a lot more difficult for scammers to exploit modern technology.
The number of scams reported to NAB soared by 38% last year. Showbiz stars Rob Mills and Rhonda Birchmore have been crowned Moomba King and Queen. It's a nod to Melbourne's title as theatre capital, and Rhonda Birchmore says she secretly wanted the gig for decades.
Entertainment royalty becomes Moomba royalty. A coronation on the banks of the Yarra for King Rob Mills and Queen Rhonda Birchmore.
Oh, much prettier than Charles and Camilla.
For the 69th Moomba Festival, a preview today with flair and feathers. The stage stars front and centre as the new monarchs.
My goodness, it's like a childhood dream.
It's an honour to be here with living legend Rhonda Birchmore. Living legend Rhonda Birchmore.
Australia's biggest community festival is back in 3 weeks.
From the Birdman Rally and the Moomba Parade through to the Thrill of the Ride, Sideshow Alley, all of the arts and crafts and family activities, fireworks, water skiing, skateboarding.
This year, the Moomba Monarch's reign will be longer than ever. The festival expanding to 5 days for the first time, starting Thursday, March 9. Which means a bigger crowd than ever.
We're going to aim for 1.5 million.
Paul Dowsley, 7 News.
Thousands of people have flocked to Victoria ahead on 7 News, where they're coming from and what it means for Melburnians. Also coming up, football legend Barry Cable facing new allegations from his time in Melbourne. And how RCH doctors are tailoring cancer treatment to save little lives. International students are returning to Melbourne for the first time in years. They're part of a big influx and they're starting to take up the jobs employers have been struggling to fill.
From Qingdao to touchdown at Tullamarine. Beijing Capital Airlines returns to Melbourne for the first time in 3 years. Melbourne Airport recording 65,000 more international arrivals than departures in just 1 month.
The flights are full into Australia, so we know that the students are coming back. We know the family and friends are travelling.
Beijing Capital becomes the 6th Chinese airline to resume flights here, but the number of Chinese travellers is only 50% of what it used to be. At Victoria University's Orientation Week, international students are once again part of campus life.
Overall, the numbers are looking closer to what they were perhaps in 2017, 2016.
The University of Melbourne is very nice.
and some of my friends are living here.
Great for unis and cafes. In the past 5 months, 28,000 hospitality jobs have been filled. Many, says the industry, by students.
The next probably couple of weeks is going to be full on, lots of students coming in.
As big as those international arrivals figures are, there's still plenty of room to grow here at Melbourne Airport. 1, possibly 2 more Chinese airlines will soon return to flying here. By the end of next month, international operations will be around 80% of what they were 3 years ago.
The Chinese airlines are spooling up much quicker than some of the international carriers.
China's rapid COVID rebound paying dividends here. Blake Johnson, 7 News.
2 miners are missing underground after an incident at a zinc mine in Queensland's northwest. It's believed the miners fell down a large hole inside the Dugald River mine and haven't been heard from since. Efforts to make radio contact with the pair have so far failed. Operations have been halted as search and rescue efforts continue this evening. 2 Melbourne sisters are the latest women to come forward with abuse allegations against former footballer Barry Cable. A civil case in WA has now heard from 5 alleged victims, all claiming they were assaulted as children.
New bombshell allegations in a civil case have come from 2 sisters who were regular visitors to his Melbourne home in the early 1980s. The girls were aged around 9 and 11 and he was the coach at North Melbourne. The women, now in their 50s, told the court they'd often use his spa, claiming Barry Cable would grope them in it, the youngest claiming he'd also rape her. When she told him to stop, she said he'd laugh and let me go. The sisters said they never told anyone about the abuse because they didn't think they'd be believed. He was a famous football coach and we were young girls. Who would we tell? The pair recall seeing the football icon regularly sunbaked nude in front of them. The older sister alleges he once asked her to come to his house and answered the door naked. The woman told the court she was so shocked she confronted Barry Cable's wife Helen about the incident, but claims she was brushed off, told not to take any notice of him, and that was just how he is. The 79-year-old denies the allegations. Now a judge will decide. Jacqueline Robson, 7 News.
Help is finally on the way for earthquake survivors in northern Syria who felt abandoned since the twin quakes hit 9 days ago. The Syrian government has agreed to open up crucial supply routes along the Turkish border.
Aid must get through from all sides to all sides through all routes without any restriction.
The death toll in Syria and Turkey has now passed 35,000. And Donald Trump's hand-picked ambassador to the United Nations is set to run against him for the Republican nomination at next year's presidential election. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley says she wants to see a new generation of leadership. Every Australian child with cancer will have access to tailor-made treatment under a world-first scheme that's guaranteed to save lives. The program uses cutting-edge science to personalise medication for young patients.
Christian Cordial was given less than 12 months to live. That was 5 years ago.
Every year that we celebrate his birthday, we're incredibly thankful for that.
The 7-year-old with a rare brain tumour is one of the first to benefit from the Zero Childhood Cancer program. Researchers conduct genomic analysis on each child's cancer to identify the perfect combination of drugs to fight it.
A number of our patients have had the sequencing done, and it's made a difference identifying new therapies.
Until now, it's only been available to those with the most aggressive cancers.
Either their tumour stopped growing, or we actually saw in some cases their tumour shrink or actually disappear completely.
By the end of the year, 1,000 Australian children will have access to the scheme. This program will not only help children who are diagnosed with cancer today, but children in the future by identifying what drives the disease and developing new targeted treatments for it.
We are generating this incredible bank of knowledge. This will power research for the next generation.
So it's going to be a spectacular next 10 to 20 years about how we do this.
Giving other families hope.
Even if it is a very poor prognosis, which is what we had, that there is a chance.
Melina Saris, 7 News.
Wonderful news indeed. The law has caught up with the firebug who started a $3 million South Melbourne inferno to get back at his landlord. The details are next. Also, the fight to save a piece of Hawthorn history from bulldozers. The surprise investment outperforming gold, and you might already own one. And just before weather, a special consumer report, the lifelong loans promising to cut repayments. The bottom line explained. A vengeful tenant has been sentenced to 4 years jail for burning down his landlord's warehouse. Jaden Tune set fire to the South Melbourne complex after he was evicted in February 2021 for not paying rent. The blaze caused $3 million damage. Tune will spend at least 2 years and 8 months behind bars. Controversial neurosurgeon Charlie Teo has described his medical hearing as soul-destroying. The Healthcare Complaints Commission is hearing claims of misconduct over his treatment of former patients.
Yeah, and it's terrible. It's soul-destroying. I've devoted my life to my patients.
The surgeon claims patients' family members have been hoodwinked into making complaints by other doctors. The big banks were at the centre of a tough day on the ASX. Network Finance editor Gemma Acton has more.
Yes, Peter, the Big Four are among Australia's largest public companies, so they played a major role in dragging the ASX 200 lower today. The Commonwealth slid the most. That was on concerns that profits are set to fall later this year. The Aussie dollar is still struggling to break back above 70 US cents. While oil prices are lower, that's as the US government prepares to release more oil onto the market. And while fewer than 4 in 10 Australian home loans are fixed, that stands in sharp contrast to other countries. More than 8 in 10 home loans are fixed in the UK and New Zealand, and nearly all of them are in the US. Peter.
Thanks, Gemma. Hawthorn residents are getting behind an effort to stop the demolition of a 141-year-old house. Developers plan to clear the Wattle Road site and build 9 three-storey townhouses. The house was once inhabited by 19th century German winemakers. Its future will be decided at a VCAT hearing. A surprise investment is outstripping gold as savvy householders turn old watches into cash. For the most sought-after brands, their value has almost tripled in the past decade alone.
All that glitters isn't gold. It could be worth much, much more. Vintage watches have gone up so much, even the experts are staggered.
Within 10 years, I would say prices of Rolexes have doubled, almost tripled.
In 2013, these were worth $15,000. Now they'll fetch up to $50,000 each.
We're seeing them really outperform those traditional investments like gold and stocks.
Online pre-loved luxury timepieces are usually snapped up within 48 hours. Buyers hoping the value will continue to climb.
They're very well constructed. There's a heritage behind the brand. I mean, there's an association with elite sports.
And movie stars. Paul Newman's famous Daytona model Rolex making history.
15,500,000!
Some unsuspecting owners having no idea their old watch is worth a fortune.
$500,000 to $700,000.
Entry-level Rolexes can be found for around $5,000. Other luxury brands even less. You just never know what they'll be worth one day. Only time will tell. Jackie Quest, 7 News.
Watch out, sport is next with Tim Watson. And Tim, footy stars are cashing in.
They are, Mitch. The $1 million club in the AFL has grown. We'll have details next. Also, we're live to the Hawks intra-club hit-out with the inside word from a star forward. A giant captaincy call as Toby Green goes solo. Security beefed up for the Aussies while Steve Smith takes matters into his own hands. And why Tiger Woods is bracing for an awkward dinner date. Welcome back. It's been a fiery intra-club hit-out for the Hawks. Mitch Cleary is keeping an eye on things. And Mitch, this is their second incident in as many weeks.
Well, Tim, the unsociable Hawks, they're back just a fortnight after James Sicily's training scrap. This moments ago on the halftime siren of tonight's intra-club. The players really expressing themselves at Sam Mitchell's request this pre-season. Will Day is impressing as a full-time midfielder. He's teaming up with Dylan Moore, who has 3 goals. Rookie forward Fergus Green with 2 of his own, putting his hand up for a key forward spot with Jack Gunston gone and Mitch Lewis injured. Lewis coaching the B-side forward line tonight. He was back running today, also challenging his coach, who said he'll miss the first month of the season with that knee injury.
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with Mitch afterwards. I said, you said a little bit longer than what I'm hoping for personally. So, yeah, certainly not a timeline on it at this stage, but yeah, I'm very much hoping for the early part of the season. From conversations with Mitch, we felt like that it could only help me when I get back out on the field. So as a player, if you see the game more like a coach, hopefully you can play the game a little bit better. So that's the stance that I'm taking at this point.
Hawks veteran Chad Wingard is sitting out tonight's match, managed after his history of soft tissue injuries. Meantime, former Collingwood father-son Callum Brown is pushing for the last Hawks list spot vacancy. His legendary father, Collingwood legend Gavin, also watching on from the sidelines. Tim, the list spot vacancies, the deadline for those closes tonight at 10 p.m.
Thanks, Mitch. The AFL's best players are being paid more than ever. According to new figures out today, the Millionaires Club has grown to a dozen, which now features the reigning Brownlow medalists.
American sports release individual salaries. The AFL just disclosed bands. The league say 12 players earn over $1 million, 3 more than $1.2 million. Dustin Martin and Buddy Franklin almost certainly top the list. Oliver, Petrarca, Cripps and 3 Giants, also likely members of footy's Millionaires Club. 51 players now earn more than $800,000. It was just 14 10 years ago. At Collingwood, Scott Pendlebury is happy taking a back seat, the former captain praising Darcy Moore.
He looks like a natural out there. His season last year was unbelievable, and I'm happy for him to get the role. And then obviously my job now is to support that and be here if he needs anything.
Several clubs are leaving their captaincy announcements late. Toby Green, the sole captain at GWS, Kelly and Coniglio dumped. Sources indicate Patrick Dangerfield has edged out Tom Stewart at Geelong. Chris Scott, a key supporter. Officially, the Cats haven't decided. Essendon could be playing games. They've said it's Heppel's if he wants it. It means Heppel could still hand it over, McGrath and Merritt right in the mix. Dane Zorko has spoken after stepping down. Lachie Neale, no guarantee. Josh Dunkley mentioned, despite not playing a game there.
Blokes like Josh Dunkley and Jack Gunston have just turned up to the club. They're really experienced players with great leadership abilities, so they'd be up there for consideration.
Tom Brown, 7 News.
Heavily armed troops in India kept fans well away from Australia's cricketers as they touched down in Delhi ahead of the second test beginning Friday. David Warner and his teammates were escorted through the airport. There was more heavy security as both teams got off the same flight before boarding separate buses to the hotel. The Aussies had their first look at the pitch this afternoon. Warner seen discussing the conditions with the curator, while Steve Smith took matters into his own hands, getting an up-close look at the pitch. The second test starts on Friday. Meanwhile, at the Women's T20 World Cup, there was a super comeback from injury for Georgia Wareham, taking 3 wickets against Bangladesh.
Yes. She's had a long road back from a pretty serious injury, and to have her back in the side doing so well was really great to see.
Meg Lanning led the chase of a modest 108, hitting 48 not out, as the reigning champs remain unbeaten. Tiger Woods is expecting an awkward reunion with the breakaway Live Tour golfers. The 15-time major champ will return to the PGA Tour this week. He's also eyeing off the Masters, where he'll come face-to-face with Phil Mickelson at the Champions Dinner.
You know, I don't know. I don't know what that reaction is going to be. Just where our situations are, either legally, emotionally, there's a lot there.
Woods hasn't played an official event since last year's British Open. Amidst the front bar, All Sport Edition is back tonight at 8:30 here on 7. Pat Cummins and Alfie Langer are the special guests.
Plenty of new captains in the AFL this year, aren't there?
Yeah, there's a lot of interest in who leads the AFL club. A lot of intrigue still going on too.
Yeah, indeed. We're adding Toby Green to the list as well. Thank you, Tim. New long-term mortgages are offering a new option to help deal with rising interest rates, but there is a cost, and we'll have the details next on 7 News. Also, we're heading for a hot night. Jane, what's the latest?
Well, Mitch, hot tonight and even hotter tomorrow night. I'll have the latest on the heat wave after the break.
Ross Lyon.
I thought it was a little bit unfair.
One-on-one with Tim Watson.
When an opportunity comes, take it.
7 News at 6.
Hello, tonight on the latest from 7 News. Unpopular but unapologetic Philip Lowe digs in on rate hikes. A former RBA insider gives us his analysis. We'll take you to the heart of the cyclone disaster zone in New Zealand. Plus the auntie of TikTok the internet is obsessed with, her tips and tricks how to keep your home sparkling. The latest, 10:45.
A new option is emerging for Victorian homeowners struggling with rising loan repayments. Banks are offering 40-year mortgages to bring short-term relief, but there is a long-term catch.
More than 1 million Australian households are facing mortgage stress. Now there's a way to spread out the pain.
It can actually make the household budget a little bit more breathable.
4 banks currently offer longer-term mortgages. UBank has a 35-year option. Australian Mutual, Pepper Money and RACQ Bank all have a maximum term of 40 years.
They have a specific place for where they need to be used.
But there's a catch.
Over the long term, over that period, you'll pay about $100,000 plus more in interest.
Extending a 25-year loan out to 40 years will save almost $500 a month on a $500,000 mortgage, but it costs more than $300,000 extra in the long run.
The other problem with extending your term is you enter retirement maybe with a debt.
At least 3 more RBA rate hikes are expected this year, meaning longer-term loans are likely to grow in popularity as an option for customers wanting short-term relief.
In my view, my personal view, it is a more of a last resort option.
Struggling homeowners are also advised to first try to negotiate a lower rate, switch banks for a better deal, or take up an interest-only option. And if you sign up for a 40-year loan, make sure you have an exit strategy.
I would recommend you reverting back to a shorter term once your financial situation improves.
Sonia Marinelli, 7 News.
Now, here's Jane with the forecast.
Thank you, Mitch. This is day 1 of a 3-day heat wave in Melbourne, but the heat may continue well into next week if you're in northern Victoria. It reached 32 in the city this afternoon, and it's called a heat wave because both the days and the nights in between are significantly above average. We have 2 hot nights ahead. A few suburbs reach 33 or 34 under sheets of high cloud and a bit of cumulus this afternoon, letting lots of sun shine through. Here are those sheets of high cloud crossing Victoria and the speckled cumulus after lunch. The heat map does show hot pinks and reds coming down through much of the state, with sea breezes at the coast. The sun is shining through the high cloud, producing rings known as corona. It is caused by ice crystals in that high up cloud, and it sometimes indicates that there is rain on the way, but not always. And in this case, the rain-producing system is the cold front that is down through here. That's sliding southwards tomorrow, not bringing anything to us. The heat is thanks to a high that is out to our east, dragging hot air from the interior right down here into Victoria. The cool change arrives when the trough does. That trough is still back over to our west tomorrow night. So the next 2 days continue hot, both day and night. The heat builds to very hot conditions in the northwest on both Thursday and Friday. Then that cool change passes through, but it only brings relief here in southern Victoria. The heat certainly remains in the north. It tries to make it back into southern parts of the state from time to time over the next few days. This one is an extended period of heat. Now, it could rebuild in a big way. The latest guidance shows the potential for a renewed heat wave later next week. I'll have more on that shortly. Around the nation tomorrow, a tropical low brings heavy rain to far north Queensland, but Brisbane is dry, Sydney's sunny, warm to hot for Canberra and Hobart, Adelaide very hot, mild in Perth on the other side of the trough. To Victoria, hot in northerly winds, occasionally strong and some coastal sea breezes. Generally dry with further patchy high cloud, except in the southwest where there may be patchy light rain and the risk of fairly dry thunderstorms. They begin there late in the day. Closer in, we are in for a hot one tomorrow. Afternoon temperatures in the mid-30s, brought on by breezy to strong northerly winds before a late afternoon sea breeze. It is a mix of sun and cloud tomorrow, just like today in the city. But the temperature should rise a few degrees high, heading for 35 after not dropping below 21 all night. Then tomorrow night is even hotter. On the 8-day outlook, we may not fall below 25. Now, that is ahead of the hottest day in this heat wave. I'm expecting 39 on Friday. Now, that is before a cool change arrives late in the afternoon and drops it right down for Friday night. It does look mostly dry. There's the slight risk of a thunderstorm. Saturday, about 24, sunshine by the afternoon. We've got a couple of days there where it's sunny by the afternoon. The warmest one is Sunday. But we may have that heat rebuilding at the end of next week. Hot tonight, tomorrow night and on Friday. 35 tomorrow, high 30s on Friday before that change, Mitch.
So we're nudging 40?
Nudging 40 and maybe again late next week.
OK, thanks very much, Jane. Now, here's what's on Sunrise in the morning.
Thanks, Mitch. Tomorrow on Sunrise, pay what you want for your mobile phone.
Big savings as you choose just what you need. How a new telco is doing it.
See you in the morning, Melbourne.
And that's the way it is this Wednesday, the 15th of February. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night.